So, guys, I want to talk about AEW Dynamite. And I do want to say that I've been having issues sleeping while watching the show. But I work a lot of hours, so I think what I need to do is start reviewing the show in the morning. And that's been a better option for me. So, I do want to say after watching the show, it was definitely had its ups and downs. I don't think that it was the best, go home show. Sorry, guys. I don't think it's the best go home show, but I do think that it struggles with formatting. That's been the big issue with AEW. That when you have your main event, MJF versus Hangman Adam Page, why isn't the last segment of the night? Why isn't their issue and their stipulations? Why is that not the last thing? Why does it have to be Tony Storm and all the other women and stuff like that? I do understand. That was a good one, boys. But I do understand that, sometimes, yes, you have to have women end the show, but you can't always do it all the time, really. It's the most important story that should end the show sometimes. Not every single time, really. But this was the time where you should have ended it with Hangman and MJF and their conflict. I also appreciate them showing the entire Glasgow, Scotland crowd. And I really just want to say that, Ospreay's wrong. You know what? I am a beer drinker. I can drink with the Brits very well, really. So look at this sexy goddess right here. So I do want to say that I really appreciate them showing shots of the crowd. I also think with AEW, they always need to announce the attendance. When they have a large attendance, like 5,000 or more people, please announce that. When you go to have pay-per-views and they have close to 17,000 people in the UK, please announce that. When you're at Rima, Mexico, and you have over 10,000 people, please announce that. When you're at Wembley Stadium, well, you did that, but always announce it when you have a large attendance to show that AEW is not a fucking ghost town, like, Cheyenne, Wyoming. So, it opens with Bryan Danielson, and he comes out as the guest host, really. So, yes, I appreciate that. Now you're having people that matter and that people care about starting the show. You're not doing something like they did before, like you have random matches with random people. You always have to have a hooker, something that hooks, not something that sucks, my dick, really. What I mean by hooker. So, I also appreciate them doing good cinematography, showing the crowd, wide angle shots, camera pans. You show that this is a big event. You show that when you do UK tours and Europe tours, there's a lot of people, really, So, this is really, really great. It opens with Will Ospreay, gets a loud UK response. And I was saying to myself, imagine if they had pyro tonight. Like, honestly, they should have had pyro just to really make the crowd go way more crazy, really. But, the crowd is loud. So, it's a little weird what he says. He said he's not clear to wrestle. So, that's why he's having a lights-out match. An unsanctioned match, because that way AEW is not liable for him. So that does not make a lot of sense, really, because first of all, for professional wrestling, even if it's a lights out match, they have to be responsible for your physical condition, really. You're not going to have somebody like Stone Cold Steve Austin, after he got a pile driver by Owen Hart, have a lights out match at the main if they had that during that show, really, So that makes no sense. And that's also bad because you don't know if he has like a spinal injury or whatever, really. I don't believe he does, really. But if you keep talking like that, that's not good, really. It has to be legit, because it's at a point where people are worried about him, or people are going to be like, oh, well, here goes AEW. They put him in all these extreme matches. So this is what happens when you put a guy in extreme matches. Shit like this happens where where he's injured. So you have to be a little careful what narrative you tell. And then what happens is that I like what he says: if I can't be Will Ospreay after this Sunday, I'll leave everything in the ring. Great line. I want revenge. This is for me. I like this because that's storytelling. This is Ospreay getting into his emotions, and that's one of his weaknesses. He does get into his emotions a lot, and then he also loves his comrades. Sometimes comrades will betray you, so I do think like he wears his heart on his shoulders. So I like all this stuff because that's one of the weaknesses of Will Ospreay. And then also, the other thing that happens is the Death Riders ambush Ospreay, and then Speedball and Kevin Knight come out to save him. Then Hiroshi Tanahashi comes out and saves him. And then I got a little confused because they should have announced all the matches for tonight in the beginning of the show, so you know that now it's Death Riders versus Hiroshi Tanahashi and Jet Speed. So during the match, you see Speedball do a missile drop kick on Yuta and a running shooting star press. Marina gets thrown out by a referee, and I'm surprised because usually there's a lot of disqualification spots throughout many matches, and now he's reacting really. So it's kind of a little jarring because a lot of times referees either give warnings or they just let things go really. So this was kind of jarring, even though I understand what they're trying to do. Will Ospreay kidnaps Marina, and I said to myself, I wish it was Willow, because imagine if it was Willow and this led to Marina and Willow having a match, which should have happened, or if you even had something like, 5-on-5, but you also have Willow and Marina fight each other in that, kind of incorporate the women, make Willow a bigger deal, that should have been. And then you could also have Marina be treated like a bigger deal, because honestly the Death Rider is going to end really, and Marina's just going to be in obscurity really. So I wish they kind of had that just to elevate the women, in this Death Rider thing, but they're not doing that. Hiroshi Tanahashi does a 450 senton on Yuta. Speedball Mike Bailey does a top rope moonsault on Moxley. Hiroshi Tanahashi and Jet Speed, they all do a triple swinging net breaker. Then Bullet Club War Dog comes to help Moxley, and that confuses the hell out of me for two reasons. Because most people don't know who the fuck these wrestlers are, and it's almost like what happens with AEW. They expect you to know New Japan Pro Wrestling like you watch it every single week, and then also too, people know who Gabe Kidd is. You establish him a little bit, but a lot of people are like, who the fuck are these other people? And then the other thing is, why doesn't the referee throw these people out? He just threw out Marina Shafir. Why doesn't he throw this match? Because obviously you see a bunch of people interfering, so that makes no sense. Will Ospreay comes out with the body bags and throw Marina Shafir off the stage. People think Marina Shafir's in the body bag. Hiroshi Tanahashi does a 450 on Yuta, and he gets the pinfall. So yeah, it was a good match. A lot of great action. One a good length. But the interference at the end was kind of stupid. The referee should have thrown out the match, and that's how they should have ended it, because they got into a bunch of anarchy after this. There's post-match melee. The Death Riders, Ops, Young Bucks, the conglomeration all fight around. And what happens is that, in Cleveland, they had Darby Allin jump off a height. They had people fighting in the crowd. So I kind of said to myself, what would happen if they said, okay, we want to do these spots for Glasgow, Scotland. We are around maybe almost 2.5 times as many people. Can we save the fighting in the audience, the brawls and the melees for Scotland? Can we not do that for Cleveland? I think you had something stronger, but when you have all these melee stuff happen all the time, really, it doesn't feel as special, really. It feels like you're just trying to pop the crowd, and it becomes a cliche like the Conway Twitty gag. Charles Bukowski would drink beer while he did his poetry. Christian Cage and Adam Copeland get a large reaction. Adam Copeland says he's an asshole. Sometimes you need an asshole in this business. Christian is my asshole. So once again, we do this 48-hour film project comedy where we have to make it funny. We have to make it humorous. Christian Cage said, I found myself. I am perfect the way that I am. We are not on the same page. We are writing in the same book. We agreed to come together to solve the Adam's FTR problem, my Nick and Kip problem. So again, I like this because this tells the story. This shows what page that they're on. So there's no confusion. Kip Sabian comes out, and I'm happy to see Kip Sabian, Mama Wayne, and Nick Wayne all doing speaking parts because this is a big issue with professional wrestling. Do not be like, Commander. Do not be like Ray Phoenix. Do not be like Orange Cassidy. Actually get on the microphone more. Speak more. Practice backstage. I believe Mama Wayne was an actress, and I believe Kip Sabian was an actor as well, really. So use some of that acting shit that you guys know. Be compelling. And they did a good job, so I give them credit for that because they need to have wrestlers that don't just perform, that know how to do moves. Just people who need to talk a lot more. Like, that's one reason why Bandito's a great wrestler, but he doesn't get over the way that he should, really, because he doesn't know how to talk to an audience, really. So this is why this is good. I appreciate them doing that. Nick Wayne is on the screen. He mentioned that his foot got broken, and then you saw a video package of Luchasaurus. So I want to talk about this. Nick Wayne, he kicked ass on the microphone. He honestly was angry. He was angry. He had conviction. He spoke with a tone. He spoke with aggression. Really, he had a tone to his voice. So I really feel like he knows that wrestling in an American promotion means you instigate, you use your voice, box, and he did that. So he knocked out of the park tonight. I think this is the best thing that I saw. This is the best improvement. Bandito is probably the most improved this year, but Nick Wayne's also on that list, and this shows that he does give a fuck about not being a quiet guy that does great matches. He gives a fuck about actually understanding its voice and conviction that gets you places. It's not just a move. So I appreciate that. So you saw this resurrection thing where you saw Luchasaurus in the hospital bed. I wish they didn't do that because he didn't need that. You could have just turned the lights all black and either black and red or black and green or something like that to be this guy's coming straight out of hell or straight out of Jurassic Park, really, or whatever, really. That would have been better. I think him being on a operating table didn't work. But a lot of people are saying that when you looked at who was resurrecting him, it looked like Jack Perry. So you might see Kip Sabian, Jack Perry, Luchasaurus, Nick Wayne, Mama Wayne, and FTR and Stokely all as one group. But then you run into that problem of way too many factions in AEW, really. So we kind of know what they're going to do. I actually feel bad because I predict that Luchasaurus is going to lose because he always loses. Big men usually lose a lot in AEW, really. So it was great to see him. He dominated both Copeland and Christian. But usually when you see that in professional wrestling, the villain gets the advantage on the go-home show, they usually lose. This would put Luchasaurus over if he was able to pin Christian or Edge. But they're not going to do that. The thing was, they did Brodito versus FDR. So there are things about this match. That first of all, Dax throws 2 chairs into the ring. Why isn't he disqualified or whatever? This is also why referees are stupid in AEW. They have to say, okay, you did that, you're disqualified. You can't just kind of have shit go on for a long time. Dax hits a spike pile driver on Brody King. Brody King no sells. So I've never seen that happen before. So that's really cool. Brody King hits a senton. Brodito and they both do a Brodito. That team does a double team move, but it looks like they were hesitating, they didn't know what to do really. So they have to kind of practice a little bit more. They have to make that a little bit more fluid. Stokely uses he wears a cast, but it's revealed that there's a pipe in it, and that bloodies Brody King. I wish they kind of established that more really. It felt like it came out of nowhere. So I wish they kind of set that up a little bit better, a little bit more clearer. Brody King does a top rope dive. FTR counters. Bandito does a top rope dive. FTR counters with it onto the ring rope face plant, which looks vicious. Dax has a brain buster on Bandito. Bandito does a top rope crossbody dive. And a double Hurricane Rana DDT. Brody King does a cannonball, pop-up power bomb, and outer ring senton. Bandito stupidly waste time. I didn't like that spot where he was changing his mask. Like, isn't like winning a tag team championship more important than him winning a wearing on changing his mask really? So that was kind of like dumbass. Um, FDR does a top rope superplex on Brody King and a splash. After that, the announcer announced that there's 5 minutes left. FDR hits a spike pile driver on Brody King on the apron. Bandito does a top rope moonsault on FDR. And they actually do a table spot at the last minute where Cash Wheeler goes through that. So there were issues with this match, really. Yes, it was epic. It was good visuals. It held your attention for like 30 minutes. And actually tonight, I believe there was only 3 matches on the card. So they did a hell of a job like focusing on Forbidden Door and promos. Because you can't always have a match heavy show. That's not always the best thing to have it be match heavy. Because if it was really like match heavy every single show, it just gets boring really. You have a lot of matches this weekend. And usually AEW has long matches on their pay-per-view. So I appreciate their minimalism. You don't have all the matches. You don't saturate your show with a lot of matches before you have a pay-per-view with a lot of matches on it, because that's just kind of stupid really. It's just too much. It's just too much abundancy. So I appreciate that, but I don't appreciate them doing a triple threat again. I also don't appreciate them doing a 30-minute, because usually when they do 30-minute draws, they have a bad habit of not having a bunch of matches that get close to 30 minutes. Like, you need to start having matches where people go to 29 minutes and somebody wins. Or, 29, with 3 seconds left. You have to do that a bunch of times to make it feel like, okay, now it's not like, oh, now 30 minutes have passed, 25 minutes have passed, we know how it's going to end, really. They have a bad habit of just not always having a draw with this, instead of saying, okay, we're going to have a clear winner or whatever, really. So what happens after that is that MJF talks to Ricochet earlier on in the show about coming together against Mark Briscoe. And what they do is they kidnap Mark Briscoe later on in the show, and they threaten to light him on fire. And there are stipulations added to the heavyweight championship match. Like, what I remember is that the title can change hands by disqualification, and that also, most importantly, MJF can have this match without using his briefcase. So the good thing about this is that I like the gas tank thing and him setting him on fire threat, because this shows you that this is not WWE, this is not TNA wrestling, this is AEW where they are more violent. That's how they're different, really. So you needed this to kind of say, okay, we're not like kiddies, we're not like WWE. So I appreciate them just making it appropriate to the tone of the show that they want to do. And then also too, the main event match was Tony Storm and Alex Windsor versus Mercedes Athena. Windsor does a fallaway slam on Athena. Tony Storm does a fisherman suplex. Alex Windsor does a blue thunder bomb on Mercedes. Athena does a pile driver to Tony Storm on the stairs. Windsor did not know Mercedes was legal. Windsor did not know Mercedes wasn't legal, and then she gets hit by a top rope eat defeat by Athena, and Athena wins the match. So usually when that happens, like I've said before, and I'll say it again, when the villain wins the match, or when the villain gets a beat down on the opponent, you kind of know that Tony Storm is going to retain, really. And then I also didn't like this because you have a fatal four-way with Athena, and he didn't establish who Persephone is and the other woman that she's facing from Stardom, really. So you kind of know that Mercedes is going to win, but you have to establish who these people are. Like, when you had the X Division, they had the contract thing. So Jack Evans, Austin Aries, I think Travis Scott, if I'm saying his name right, or I forgot who the other person was, but it was 4 people, but you kind of knew. But they did an excellent job of kind of them having matches, and then kind of being like, okay, you know what? We know who these people are as we're going along, really. Here, I think with Forbidden Door, that was one failure they really did not establish who a lot of these Japanese wrestlers were and what they mean and stuff like that. You almost have to be a fan of New Japan for pro wrestling or professional wrestling in general and know a lot about Japanese wrestling to know who these people are really. But I would say, as I said, and as I said before, it makes no sense to have Tony Storm and Alex Windsor main event. The main event should have been the segment of Adam Page and also MJF. And I think another stipulation should have been that he talks to Tony Khan, that Adam Page has to talk to Tony Khan and give Ricochet and the Gates of Agony match and for the trios title. That would be the way to kind of do it, really. That would be the way to do it, to kind of, make it a 10-match card, and then also that would be a good match to have, really, so everybody's utilized. So I would say that overall, as I said, the show went by really well for 3 matches, with one match that was like 30 minutes long. And everything else was talking and dialogue and story building. Really great job, really, really good job. Really good flow. I like this. The people in Glasgow, they got their money's worth. They got something out of tonight, really. But what I would say, and I also am happy that they got Collision because they're going to have more matches. So just feel like they're going to get they're going to get their meat and potatoes, not just bones, really, because there wasn't a lot of matches on this card. But overall, I think Forbidden Door has great matches, but they don't have a lot of great story getting into this. I think they rushed a lot of things. They didn't establish a lot of Japanese wrestlers. They also didn't explain what the lights out match is, because a lot of people don't know what that is. So I wish they could have established that. And like I said before, when you have big crowds, please announce the attendance, because just like with TNA Wrestling, like they copied what they did in WWE when they announced that, okay, at Slammiversary, we have 7,000, or we have close to 8,000 people. Here they should have said, we had 8,000 people, whatever, really, So they always have to do that. I would say that after watching the show, I'm going to give it a B+. It was a strong show. I like what they did by showing the crowd and the audience. Nick Wayne is why I'm giving it B+. I like how he was talking more. He was just trying to turn himself into a wrestler, be more of a character. And I also just, and I appreciate that, because it shows that, he's giving a fuck, and that's what more wrestlers need to do in AEW. They need to just be more talkers. They need to evolve themselves. They should not just be like video game characters where they do the same type of moves or whatever, or the same type of dialogue or whatever. So that's kind of what gave me that B+ rating. But overall, really great show. And unfortunately, I can't go to London today. I'm losing like $300 over it because I have to work this weekend. So it is what it is, really. But I'll go to the Toronto All Out show. I'll go to Wrestle Dream in St. Louis. I'm also going to go to TNA Bound for Glory. And there's also Newark. I live in New Haven, so that's not that far from here. And then there's also World's End. I'm hoping to get money together to go to Japan to see Wrestle Kingdom. That's my lifelong dream. My heart and soul is into going to Japan. So I want that to happen, really, So I need my 1,000 subscribers to help me get there. So I'm going to work hard as I can, really. But overall, really great show. For anybody in London who's watching this, have a great time at the Glasgow events and have a great time at Forbidden Door. It's really, really sad that I had an opportunity to go, but I can't because of work. But, as the old song goes, you can't always get what you want. You get what you need. And that's how life goes, bitches. Woo! I'm drunk. But I'm happy to give you guys a good Charles Bukowski type of review, because when he read his poetry, he would drink.